The Penguins, after last night going to Montreal, they lost to Montreal last week 5-1. They went there and they had a lead, let it get away, and then they end up losing in a shootout. Jason Mackey is here now. He was there then. What is it about the Penguins early in the season? Is it just kind of a malaise with them? They know when to turn it on, and it's not at the beginning of a hockey season? Or what is the problem at this point, if there is one?
Yeah, I think, Pomp, the problem at this point is that it's game 4, and you're taking a bunch of players that are at the upper crust of the offensive spectrum, and you're asking them to play a lot of defense very early in the season. I don't know if we're to the point where Mike Sullivan is going to blow his top and they're going to completely flip out. I think the Penguins, the players, probably need to give a little bit more. That being said, I think they have had some issues, in-game stuff. Goaltending certainly could be better, although Casey DeSmith was outstanding last night. And their forward lines are just a little bit all over the place. Derek Brassard at wing, and they need to the water needs to find its level a little bit there.
I mean, there's a reason that this franchise churns through coaches even in good times, and that's because they almost always have, if this were school, the smartest kids, and you need to challenge them and you need to find a way to actually get the most out of them without having them rebel. Like Jason said, it's real early, and these guys want to score goals. It's just going to be hard to rein them in before game 45 or 50, and then even then, you're not really going to get their best on that 200 feet of hockey until game 75.
Yeah, I think Mike Sullivan mirrors Bill Belichick in a lot of ways. The Patriots usually start slow. His team is doing the same thing. And in that vein, what I think will be very interesting this year is I don't think Sullivan's a guy that has loyalties. I think he does not have a teacher's pet. He plays his best guys. What if Casey DeSmith is better than Matt Murray? I think that'll be an ongoing situation because I thought DeSmith, even though the score might not reflect it, was good again last night. If Murray is shaky, what does Mike Sullivan do with DeSmith? Is he more willing to play the backup and make it a meritocracy?
I mean, if you're just looking to chase wins when your team isn't playing well, then there's no, Murray, as much as I love the guy for what he's done in the playoffs and applaud him for that, he hasn't stayed healthy and played like a full, he hasn't played like a full workload, so why not give the other guy, if he's a hot goalie right now, early starts if it's going to get you some extra wins? It's all worth it.
I do disagree a little bit with the fact that saying Mike Sullivan has no biases, and I don't blame him for having the biases he did, but when Marc-Andre Fleury was here, everybody said, oh, Matt Murray's his guy. He doesn't like Marc-Andre Fleury, and to be honest with you, some of that was accurate, and we've seen him hang on to Dominic Simone a lot, and Daniel Sprong can't seem to do anything right. I mean, I wouldn't say that he's completely divorced from biases, but as far as Matt Murray and who you play in goal, don't you have to get your number one goaltender established here? And this is a sneaky big decision Tuesday against Vancouver, who Sullivan decides to go with.
I want to talk about forwards, too, because Patrick Hornquist was on the top line. Now he's down to a third line, it looks like. Daniel Sprong, as you mentioned, Jason, is who knows where he is. How much time do you guys give a guy like Daniel Sprong, and do you think he's being misused right now, Andrew?
I'd get rid of him, honestly. I don't think well, not now, like today, because trades typically don't get done this time of year. But I think it's, round peg, square hole, or square peg, round hole, however you say it. There just is not a symbiotic relationship between him and the coach. And I think if he's going to flourish somewhere, he needs to move a la Derek Pouliot to Vancouver, the team they'll see on Tuesday.
I mean, if you could get a great return, maybe, but I saw him make a hell of an offensive play to set up a goal for Dominic Simone, kind of a hustle grinder play. There's plenty of talent there. The question with
he doesn't play 200 feet, and
well,
that's
the question with him is they have a more established version of him in Phil Kessel. They have an all-offense player who's better at what he does by a lot than Daniel Sprong is at what he intends to be in the NHL. So if you think that you have too much of a surplus there and it's too much of a pain for Sullivan, then I could see it down the road a couple months from now.
I think it's hard because they really haven't put Daniel Sprong in a position to play to his strengths, and Sullivan talks about that all the time. But you can play the kid on the fourth line. I don't care how offensive your fourth line is. You're not putting him in a position to do what he does best. I want to see top 6 minutes. Leave him alone for 10 games. And if he stinks, then fine. Make a decision. But we're nowhere close to that. And he's not playing him with anybody who's going to sort of accentuate what Daniel Sprong can do.
Jason, I want to ask you this because you were there last night. Justin Schultz with the injury. He's going to be out for, you would imagine, a longer period of time. Your knowledge of what is going to be diagnosed there. We heard Bob McKenzie today, but also Juuso Riikola. He was not as good yesterday as he was early on. Your take on him and what they may be facing from a blue line perspective?
Yeah, well, the Justin Schultz thing, first of all, it's not good. It's going to be a while. I mean, I'm talking months here, not weeks or days, and very likely a fracture like McKenzie reported as well. I saw him walk out in a walking boot, or not even a walking boot. It was just a gigantic thing on his foot and crutches. But Juuso Riikola has been very good. I thought he was okay last night, certainly not problematic. But if this kid's in your top 6, I have no problem whatsoever. My bigger concern at this point is what you're going to do with Olli Maatta. He was not good at all last night, and that needs to change.
Oh, because Maatta's overrated, and everyone's afraid to say it.
But he's still under contract.
Well, right, but what is he good at? He doesn't score points. He's
well,
not
he was
physical.
good last year,
He's not a great
Andrew.
skater, but he's an okay defenseman. And I know he's young, but when are people just going to stand up and say that? He's not a number 1. He's not going to be a number 2. He's not going to score you points. He doesn't put in goals. He's not a power play performer. What is he good at? He's just okay.
Artie Maatta, it sounds like what you're describing. He's doing the Artie Burns track, honestly, of being really good his first year, and now all the health issues that Olli Maatta has. But the problem is he had the health issues. Everyone gave him kind of a pass for all of that and assumed he'd get back up to speed and physically be whole again, and he hasn't, and that's the really troubling thing.
I'm going to give the kid a pass right now, just being around him every day. It seems like his head is just full of so much. I realize he looks slow right
So
now.
is mine, Jason, but I do an okay job. I mean,
Right.
get over it. Build
But
a bridge and get over it.
you don't have a bad day? You don't have a show that you're not
Yeah, but Andrew, you
completely
don't
proud
think
of?
he was
No,
good
Andrew
last
does
year?
a great show every
Thank you.
single day.
Thank
In fact, every day.
I didn't mean bad completely. All right. I'm not going to win this argument.
I think Olli Maatta is going to. You guys forget last year. He was pretty solid, and he played. I think
he looked
every
that way in the
single game.
Washington series,
Every
Bob.
single.
He looked
Okay,
great.
but how old is he, Jason? 24. He's
yeah,
still, you know.
23, 24. Yeah.
I'm just saying,
year,
what is
yeah,
he good
first
at?
year.
What's his best skill? Give me what.
He's fundamentally sound when he's on his game. He's not going to blow you away with his speed, his decision making, his end-to-end rushes. He's a good, but he's a
Other
good,
than that,
solid
Mrs. Lincoln.
defenseman. And sometimes in this game with this team, you forget about that. That's important.
Pomp has an Olli Maatta sweater on underneath that suit.
No, I'm just trying to defend the game.
I know.
It's 4 games, and they're going to make conclusions on his whole future to get rid of him. I think it's a little too premature. When we come back, we're going to talk about Pitt, which lost a game they really should have won. That's next.